According to the New York Times, workers at a Kentucky battery plant, partly owned by Ford, narrowly voted to join the United Auto Workers. The final tally was 526 to 515, with 41 contested ballots that could still flip the outcome. The fight goes beyond this one factory. It's about whether unions can regain strength in the South and in the fast-growing electric vehicle sector. Historically, when Americans talk about the golden age of the middle class, the post-war years when a single factory job could buy a house and send kids to college, they often forget the key ingredient wasn't the assembly line itself, but union bargaining power. In the 1950s and 60s, more than 1 in 3 private sector workers belonged to a union. Today, that figure is closer to 6%, a measly 6%. As Cornell professor Ian Greer told The Times, the footprint has shifted from Michigan southward. It's a very challenging environment for the United Auto Workers. The outcome in Kentucky will test whether organized labor can reassert itself in the industries of the future. Okay, what's the real message here? People in Kentucky voted to unionize factory making cars. For all this talk about make America great again and the good old days and bring back manufacturing, everyone always forgets to hear the real message, which is the reason it was the good old days is 35% of the American workforce, private sector, was unionized. The unions were the ones that got them weekends off and benefits and pay raises. Without that union power, a job in a factory is just a job in a factory, often a low-paying one. Let's dig a little deeper here. So you've got to give credit to American business owners and capitalists. They came up with this great rhetoric of, we want to be a right-to-work state. What does that really mean? Well, a lot of states across the country, especially in the South, passed a law saying you have the right to work. Well, again, that sounds great. That's great rhetoric. That's great messaging. What it really means is unions have their power stripped away. Unions lose their ability to negotiate on behalf of workers. And when that happens, the wages go down, 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 down. And everyone seems to forget this when they talk about the good old days and making America great and, whatever happened to the middle class. Well, what happened to the middle class was that unions were decimated. There was a class war in America. Yes, there was. There really is a class war, and there was a class war. And guess what? As Warren Buffett points out, we won. My team won, meaning the billionaire class won, the capitalist won. And that's why we've seen wages continually go down in relative terms, because there's just aren't many unionized jobs. It used to be if you were a Teamster truck driver, you made a good living. These days, truck drivers, most of them they're really not doing very well. Let's not kid ourselves. And it's because this lack of union power. Now, I'm going to alienate a lot of people today on every side, because there is one growth area in the United States where unions have done well, and that's government. And I say this as someone who worked for several years in state government. I worked for about a year in the federal government. I'm not anti-government. I'm really not. But I can tell you from my perspective, the area where government employees need the least protection, the last 6 months notwithstanding, is in government. It's the private sector where the incentives for capitalists are to lower the pay, increase the hours, not worry about work conditions. So do school teachers sometimes need more pay? Yes, but there's nobody really profiting by keeping school teachers' salaries below market rates, because then there's no teachers for that school system. So I think the far bigger problem has been, if you just look at the private sector, which is, at least until recently, we've been considered a free market country where most things need to take place in the private sector. Again, in the 50s and 60s, 35%, more than 1/3 of people working in the private sector belong to a union. Today, it is a tiny, tiny percent. It's closer to 6%. This doesn't get a lot of attention, but this is the real reason why we don't see a family of 4 with a stay-at-home spouse being able to afford a 4-bedroom, 1,800, 2,000 square foot home on one person's salary, because the non-union jobs don't have to pay. You get a gig job at Uber, you don't have any protection, you don't have any bargaining power. You don't have any guaranteed cost of living increases. People did in the 50s and 60s and 70s and even beyond when they were members of organized unions. So to me, this does come down to messaging. The capitalists did a great job. Let's face it, the capitalists, the billionaires, they get to hire people like me and other PR people and communications people. So they came up with this ingenious technique of just saying, let's pass a law. First of all, they figured out their goal. The goal was, how can we pass a law to take all the power away from the unions and to put it more in our pocket? That was step one. Step two is, how do we package this law so that it sounds so good no one would vote against it? So they called it right to work. Now, that's part of the problem, but I won't kid you, that's not the only part of the problem. The other part of the problem is the rest of the world says we want to be a part of capitalism. The United States was the beacon of democracy after World War II and was telling people, stop being dictatorships, stop being monarchies, stop being communists, most of all. Join us in the world of capitalism and free market enterprise. And a lot of countries from South Korea to Malaysia and other places said, okay, sounds like a good idea, count us in. So they built factories and their workers want to sell their stuff to us. Pretty hypocritical for us to say, well, we've been badgering you not to be communist. We've been badgering you to make things. We've been badgering you to adapt to the Adam Smith mentality of, everyone focuses on what they're good at producing, where are they marginally better than others, and sell it in the worldwide market. So it'd be kind of silly if we said, okay, we're not going to buy your stuff just because it hurts the living standard of our own employees. So that's what happened. And those who want to just vote for populists, thinking you're magically going to go back to these good old days, you're only fooling yourself. You're absolutely fooling yourself. Am I saying that if we could just unionize 35% of the American workforce, all would be great and we could go back to everyone having a nice home and only one spouse having to work and 2 cars? No, because of international competition. It's not that easy, but this is, make no mistake about it, part of the problem. Germany has to compete on a worldwide economy, and yet a huge percentage of the workforce in Germany is unionized, and they do have a much more vibrant middle class. So please keep that in mind, and let's be honest, let's chalk up a huge victory for the billionaires, the capitalists, for people who own manufacturing companies, this fundamental messaging decision they made of just saying, let's take power away from unions and let's just call it right to work, was brilliantly effective. I'm TJ Walker. I want to thank you for joining me on Filtered today. This is where we look at top news stories and we filter it through the lens of communication and personal development skills, all with the goal of helping you become more successful in your life.